Welcome to Hatched, Idea to Impact. I'm Jenna Devonport.
And I'm Dustin McMahon. This is a podcast where we sit down with people behind successful businesses to unpack their journey.
The lessons, the setbacks, the mindset, and what shaped them along the way. Real conversations about what it actually takes. Let's get into it.
Okay, today we're here for the fourth instalment of Hatch the podcast with Rye Smith, the Claude Ambassador. Loves a bit of social media, can hassle people a bit, and also loves the Vietnamese roll. Welcome, Rye.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Good to be here.
Nice to have you. So, Rye, tell us about you and your business.
So I run a business called Spruik. We're a digital and AI enablement business, helping a bunch of businesses right across a range of different industries try and get more business, essentially, through really clever uses of technology. So whether that's upgrades to websites or using this new wave of AI, which we'll tuck into, I'm sure, we're really sort of positioned to help businesses with the experience I've had. So from a business perspective, that's what I do. And yeah, been really, doing that since a kid. So I started coding when I was 11, had my first client at 12, and then just really fell in love with it since then.
So let's start on early days. Yeah. Coding is probably not what it is today, but what got you into it? Where'd you come from? Where'd you grow up and that sort of stuff?
Cotton Eye Joe, yeah. So Mum put off buying a computer right from the very start. So I reckon I was in year 4 and the teacher said, by the time you finish as high school, you won't need a computer. And that was 2005. So we know how much that sort of changed. What was that, from 97 to 2005? And anyway, finally talked Mum into getting a computer and really just sort of fell in love with it. So did the whole GeoCities websites. There was a website called Neopets where you could customize your profile and all that. Well before MySpace was even a thing. And I think it was that instant gratification in, hang on, I've made a change, and hang on, I've been able to make a button a different color, or having that sort of engagement in terms of people are using my website, or people are getting involved. And I think there's mixing that tech with a bit of creativity has always been there from the start. So that's where it kicked off in the late 90s. I was a massive cricket tragic, so we had an awesome driveway at home. Used to play cricket, and I'd record every single game I played with my mates. So I don't know if they call that being on the spectrum these days, but I've got records of every single backyard cricket game I played. And so, mucking around with Excel, hang on, I don't have to write this down anymore. I can chart this. I can put little run rate graphs up and all that sort of thing too. So yeah,
What were you recording it with? I remember our family, we had this video recorder that was about this size that used to get wheeled around to the Christmas parties. What?
No, it was all written down. So I had a folder and
Not video recording.
I pictured you having this little chair with a box recording it.
I did too.
The old VHS tape in there. No, I did. You used to be able to hire them from like Video Easies or Blockbusters for, like saying, those special occasions. So I think recorded a few games over the years, but real nerd, sporty, nerdy type, and that was just sort of one use of tech all the way back then. But just I guess being able to bring to life a lot of that sort of stuff at an early age was pretty cool.
So cricket tragic, batter, bowler, or just umpire taking all the stats, writing it down?
I was going to say absolute nerd. I was a bowler, but unfortunately, if I could talk to my younger self, it'd be don't play it, because I reckon that's where all the back problems come from.
Just be a Daryl Hare, you reckon?
More of a Bucknor. Yeah. Just give anything out. So no. So played a bit of sport, and then through that tech side, I was 12. Did a website for a company my dad was doing. He was working for a factory setup, and then they paid me $600 to do their website. So as a 12-year-old, all the way back then, the cricket bat I bought was pretty specky, and then it was, again, absolute love affair with it ever since. Yeah.
And then, so that was at 12. What did high school look like as a nerd?
Yep.
And did you think about anything else outside of tech, or it's always been there?
Really good question, because I think, and again, you could probably talk about this for hours in terms of the school system and education and how far it's sort of come. I always thought in order to be a business person, you had to study business. So everything I was doing was geared towards a commerce degree. So economics, accounting, business maths, business studies, and then English. That was my year 12. And then all sort of worked in really, really nicely. So did really well out of school. I found it pretty easy, but the way that IT was taught back then was, all the diagrams and if-then statements and very much sort of, assembly language, and it wasn't cool. This was 2 years before the iPhone came out as well. And so just never really resonated. I never really thought, oh, hang on, and if I'm good at building websites, I can, build a business around that. That wasn't the thinking. So yeah, it was very much study business to be in business, and ended up heading off to uni to start a commerce degree.
Interesting that sort of, I guess, without knowing you've been playing the long game, now let's go to jump to now. What's going on now? You're an ambassador with Claude in Australia, is it? Or,
Yep.
Tell us about that and where I guess you've gone on a curve that it would have been like this that's just taken off over the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge, absolutely massive. And I think this is really cool in terms of the parallels back in late 90s, working in tech and the dot-com boom and seeing all that come through. And I think there's exactly the same parallels to now. So I was in a corporate gig up until May last year. Took some time off, played something like 20 rounds of golf in 30 days just to sort of clear the head. I actually haven't picked up a golf club for about 3 or 4 months now, so that's how busy it's been.
Got a hole in one and then just put them away?
Yeah, that's it. Mastered it, finished it, move on.
Or two.
That was a good day, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so look, the last 12 months has been massive, not just for my career, but in AI in general. So finished the corporate gig, and I finished that because they weren't giving me the space to use these tools. I mean, I've been touching stuff with ChatGPT since 2021 when they first came out with their sandbox. It's always been there, but in order to really kind of dive into it, I had to make the decision to leave. So I probably spent now close to 3,000, if not more, hours in Claude itself. And when you average that out, that's a proper day's worth of work every single day since then. And there have been days where I've probably spent 16, 17 hours working away on projects in Claude. And so the opportunity came up late last year. I do a fair bit in the online community with Claude. They launched their ambassador program and was very lucky to be one of 3 selected for Australia, which was awesome. And so that just means I sort of get to run events with Anthropic's, the parent company's backing, and get to meet some amazing people. We're talking like CTOs, CEOs, your startup founders, amazing people working in tech, a lot smarter people than me. But my job is to really connect those people with each other, and then businesses, with the, creators and users of this tech too. So, it's a bit of a role, as you can see with the badges, wear it with a bit of
Top Gun.
Bit of pride. Top Gun, that's it. Got the 5-star general sort of set up. So it's just been awesome in terms of enabling that connection with Anthropic, and then I won't say from a reputation perspective, but having been around tech since a kid, and then seeing where it's going, and then also having that business, nous, I come in from a bit of a unique perspective. It's not just all tech, it's also, how can businesses use this? And in that sort of ambassadorial role, it's a pretty cool position to be in, to be able to help a lot of people out through that,
So where do you see it going?
Great question. I think if anyone was to tell you that they know everything about it, or that they can forecast it and foresee it, I'd say they're full of BS. I think we're all learning as we're going, and truly the only people that know where this is going deep down are, your operators like Anthropic or OpenAI. With that said, there was a study that was just rolled out the other day from the Governance Institute of Australia that says that 93% of all Australian businesses still can't measure ROI on their AI spend. So we are so far from this being widely adopted. There was another stat out there that said there's 3.5% penetration rate globally in terms of people using AI. So I think it's very easy a lot of the time to get caught up in like FOMO and, especially when you're in your echo chambers going, oh, someone's doing something or another business is doing this. Very easy to get caught up in that too. So I think in terms of where it's going, I think that is such a broad question. I mean, 12 months has been a long time in AI. We don't know what's sort of on the cards for the next couple of months, but I do know this for certain, is that there is going to be a lot of work done within businesses in terms of who's our internal AI person, who do we go to for that AI advice, who do we engage, and how do we actually upskill our workers. So even in the education space, 76% of businesses from the same report said that they haven't conducted any kind of formal training with AI. So we are so early. You could put this podcast out in 3 months' time and I'd still say the same thing. We are so early. The adoption piece is the thing that's missing. What I will say though is if you look at it over a longer period of time, I'm not willing to go on record in terms of how long that'll be, but this stuff is here to stay. And I think things like we were talking about education before, in terms of things catching up, schools aren't equipped right now. Unis aren't equipped right now. They're not teaching things like that. There's a huge ethics and governance piece for bigger businesses as well. So this will all become a lot more solidified and clearer, I think, in the short to middle term. But long term, this stuff's here to stay, and it's, I'd say to anybody kind of working in it or where it's going is get your head around this stuff now, because you'll become pretty invaluable to businesses and it'll help you in your day-to-day as well.
That's exactly what we did before this, right? So I will hand on heart go, yeah, it's great. There's things that can be done, but there's just so much of it. And it actually blows your mind to look at it and then break it down. So I think, being able to break down a process and implement a plan as to how it can actually work effectively. There's so many self-taught, like you actually ask AI to teach you how to use AI. So I think it's a fantastic space that you're in because it's going to become bigger and better.
It can be overwhelming though, can't it?
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff out there. And to your point about teaching yourself, over December, I live in Melbourne, lucky enough to have Amazon nearby, ordered some electronic parts, and I said to Claude, I want you to teach me how to rig up this little QR code scanning project that I found online. And through Claude, it actually looked like a IED. It was actually, when I stepped back behind, I won't send that photo around too much to people. But I taught myself how to build something that interface with my, just by listening to Claude. I've got no idea what I'm doing, but I followed step by step what Claude told me to do. And you walk away and it's like, oh, hang on, I've got something physical now. So I think there's so much power in, if you're high agency, if you're naturally one of these people who want to go and look for the right answer, if you're a Googler, if that's, someone says, oh, someone was born in 1958 and your natural instinct is, oh, hang on, I'm going to fact check that or check it out, or who are you talking about? Then AI is an amazing enabler and I think just an incredible tool. But I also think that there's a lot of misinformation out there too. And I think, again, we can probably get into this over the course of the chat, but, some of that messaging, I see the benefits because I work in tech and around it and process automation and all that sort of nerdy, geeky stuff. I can see the benefits, but you've got things where people getting superimposed into images and all those other little ethical questions. Absolutely, I think there's a lot of guardrails and a lot of regulation that I think has to come in that space. But again, we're just right at the start of this, and there's a long way to go.
That's what I was going to ask before that you mentioned the word ethics. Like, are we behind the eight ball on that? Do you think, like in the way of I feel like there's so much can be done with it, so much misinformation. Is there any ethics to it? I think like where you talk about the slow adoption rates, it's so many people don't believe it's safe or ethical, or what's your thoughts around that?
Oh, look, I think Australia, we can be a bit risk averse. Our adoption rate is one of the lowest in the world, believe it or not, because I'm sure anyone listening to this would go, oh, I can't stop raving about it, or I'm talking to you. But you've got to also imagine there's millions of other people out there who are fearing for their jobs and worrying for the future as well. And so that's another thing to look at too. But on the ethical side, Look, I think it's a question of do you let it roam free and see what sort of comes of it, or do you actually put guardrails on? And I think not trying to go down the political route, but the government I think made a call on this about 12 months ago in terms of their AI policy, and they've chosen largely not to touch it or play in that space and leave it to, I guess, the tech companies and, to deal with. So
They're such moral people, though.
Oh, of course, and all of our best interests at heart, of course. So I think that's going to be interesting too. And you've already seen it in terms of the impacts at school, for example, and the horrible uses of tech. I come in from obviously all the enablement pieces. It enables me to do so much more. It's great for my day to day, but not everybody's working in an office or around tech and that. So I think half the struggle is people trying to find a reason to use it. And, if you don't have a use, that's totally fine. But I think in terms of like the skills gap, it's a great idea to get yourself familiar with this stuff because it's, not going anywhere.
I think it's like the point around the fear of losing jobs. And I think, us in our office, it's something we've been really clear and direct with our people around. It's actually not about replacing a job. It's about putting us back in front of people more, which is what we do well. And the more we can refine process and remove, admin parts, it's the better we can serve people. And so I think it's a mindset shift around what it's going to do. And when people can start to understand that power, it's an incredible tool to use.
Yeah, I think there's... again, that all comes from empowerment and capability too. And I think, again, back to that training statistic, 70% or so of businesses haven't given formal training. It's, of course, people are feeling a bit worried. They're seeing change and they're seeing everything move around them, but they're still a little bit in the dark as well. And again, let's say 9 out of 10 people I speak to have said exactly the same as you, Jenna, in terms of it's about bringing the customer back in, so human interaction. Let's stop getting bogged down with paperwork and actually let's bring, a bit of banter back, rather than feeling like you got 60 emails to look at in a short space of time. It's, hang on, can I maybe build a bit of rapport with my customer? Can I spend that quality time, or within the business actually focus on some of those high value tasks instead of paper pushing? So, and I think that's where, to your point, Dustin, in the long term, it will start with the lowest hanging fruit. And I think that's the best way to attack it is to work out what is the pain point or what takes a really long time in your business, repetitive tasks that take the biggest chunk of time, and bite it off like that. And that's a really good vehicle to get everybody involved in the business and go, hang on, this is what it can do. Here's the benefits. Because as you know, we've played sport over the years. People don't like change. People will move when there's a new coach or new player coming in or whatnot. So change is, this whole AI adoption, I think, is as much about change management as it is the actual tech and what gets used.
There's pieces in our work that we've spoken about before, like some of the onboarding processes, like it's quite difficult for clients. If we can make that easier for clients, our staff don't want to be doing it either. It's quite painful for them to do it. So if it's something that can be easier for everyone, I think there's great benefit. I jumped forward to the Claude bit when we were talking before, but I also know that you've had other little businesses and stuff like that. I touched on the Vietnamese rolls. That wasn't just you like eating them. It was probably more about a previous business that you've had. Take us through some of your past businesses you've had and tell us a bit about them.
I hate the word entrepreneur, but it's a serial entrepreneur. Like I'll give anything a go once. And to my point before in terms of the love affair with tech is I love creating stuff that people use, and maybe to my detriment over the years, I haven't charged for things or, asked for payment or whatnot. But to your point about the banh mi locator, so 2014, hopefully we can splice in some video to this and get the news story up there. But banh mi locator, this is when apps were the real deal. 2013, 2014, there was this big, movement. and I started playing around with apps, and banh mi just happened to. I was in the Vietnamese banh mi appreciation society on Facebook.
And you've got to be in that one.
Yeah, you have to. It's a must. And people were going, "Oh, where do I find the best one?" Or where do I find it? People putting like text links or map things out to Google. So look, I thought I'll combine it all in, and ended up having 20,000 downloads within a short amount of time. And you'd get comments from people going, "Oh, you must be raking it in and whatnot." So I'll tell anyone who's listening to this who goes, "Oh, I've got a great app idea and I'm going to make millions of dollars." With all of those page views and downloads, I think there was maybe $80 worth of ad revenue involved. So all that worked. But look, didn't do it for the money, but that was just a really interesting kind of thing to, I guess, get on the map. And that then led into running my first proper agency in 2015. I called it Accelerate. So that all sort of springboarded from there. So we do app development, websites and whatnot, and ended up selling that locally, which was great. Worked then for another business for a short amount of time, then launched the first iteration of Spruik in 2018. And then, as we know, COVID happened, which was a bit, for me anyway, was a bit of a hard sort of period. I had 5 people working for me. I just signed a massive commercial lease, and that was February 2020. And then I'd say within the space of 2 weeks, it was, borders shut. Everyone's marketing budgets were being cut. We did a lot of work in the hospitality scene, so all especially hotels, and hotels then got given all the government contracts, so they didn't necessarily need marketing services anymore. So did that, and then went to sort of work in corporate for a while. But yeah, as you said, over the years, I've sort of had a few little brain waves, a few little things I put out there, app ideas or websites. And I'd say to anybody listening, if you are in tech or even in AI. Just experiment, put something out there, build it and ship it and get people using it and get validation. I've done a lot of mentoring with startups over the years, and that's the biggest thing. Build your MVP, build your proof of concept. It's never been easier to build something, and I think that's kind of the basis of these little brainwaves over the years, is just put something out into the ether and you just never know what will happen as well. So yeah, that's always been a little sort of side thing on top of the consulting work day to day. It's always been nice to have a little project to sink my teeth into. Yeah.
So something like COVID, can't control it. Running a business, how do you react? How do you respond? Talk us through that part.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's probably the first time I've actually been able to talk about this sort of openly and candidly. And, we talk, I think, people talk a lot about resilience and, being able to get through that period of time. And it wasn't fun at all. It was, you guys run, your own business, and a lot of your identity actually gets caught up in that. You run a podcast, you put content out there. It's, we're from the Finance Nest, or hey, I'm Rye from Spruik. And to have that almost disappear before your eyes outside of your control, I think is hard to come to terms with. I kept all of my staff on for another 2 months. And so 80 to 90% of our revenue just disappeared overnight because it was... Sorry guys, bang. And so, that was dipping into super. I've got one rule in business, you just pay people properly and on time, and that was my biggest thing, is even though I could see things, starting to fall, it was, and we didn't know what was going to happen. Everything could have turned around in a month's time, so I was very keen to not upset the apple cart, but yeah, kept people on for as long as I could. And there's obviously, the financial implications of that, signing a 5-year lease that then I was trying to sort of get out of with a pretty tough landlord negotiator. That was fun. So there was sort of break fees and payouts and whatnot involved in that. So look, not a fun time. And I think when it's outside of your control, it hurts more, because it's nothing you've done. I think when you make a decision, or when you own a decision and you go, okay, well, that didn't work out, you can walk away with sort of lessons learned. But when it's outside of your control, it's actually quite hard to stomach and come to grips with. So I took a fair bit of time off work, to be fair, just to sort of process it all. I think I'm a big believer in that adage, be kind to yourself. Mm-hmm. So I did the same thing last year when I went and played a ton of golf in the month after, just clear the brain and sort of reset and start fresh. But look, I mean, that was a great lesson in, people management, great lesson in contract management and negotiation and all that sort of fun stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting, Tom, that like none of us thought it was coming. And I mean, yeah, I guess where'd you go with, like, did you think of doing other things, or was it always, once again, you're still, this is you and it was going to work somehow, or what's?
It was just really tough. I mean, I took refuge in sort of, I wouldn't say other people's businesses, but I thought, look, let's just go back to, back to working for the man, I suppose. Again, when you've run your own show, it is quite hard to go back and work for someone else. And I've done that a couple of times over the years, and it's a bit of a pill to swallow, because again, have I failed? Is this, all of those wonderful thoughts that run through your head. But at the end of the day, everyone's got to sort of put dinner on the table at the end of the day. So getting back, and I don't regret that part at all. So that's essentially what before last year anyway, the last sort of 3-4 years looked like in terms of working in that corporate environment for a few different businesses. And, that was very valuable, just a different perspective. I'm glad I did it, because I think we're having this massive reset now in business across the board in how business is done. Again, fundamentals don't change, but I think, the lessons learned in terms of corporate structure and how things are set up and processes and whatnot, absolutely valuable. But, as soon as I saw a bit of an opportunity to get out and do my own thing, it was break out of the cage and do that. And I think I'll always have that.
Yeah, I think each is a learning lesson, isn't it? The resilience you've shown, I think. I just remembered there was a wine bus in there at one stage as well.
Yeah, I mean, if I keep racking my brain, I think I've still got the bus. Yeah. So if there's anyone looking for a Renault bus out there, please let me know. I'll put the details up. I won't go through car sales, but no, that was a good little thing. You get to meet new people on the weekend, and that was good. It spun up a website. You got the digital marketing side of things to rank a website, which again, from the SEO perspective, was cool, and then doing the work, but that doesn't scale. That was a fun hobby job on the side, and yeah.
So, experience in lots of different businesses, corporate world. Now you're with your passion piece, AI, and you're getting to implement that into other people's businesses. What's the biggest thing you're seeing that it's changing for business owners, that it doesn't actually matter what field you're in? How does it apply to all of us?
I think people are getting their time back. And there's one thing that money doesn't buy, and it's time. Well, I work in consulting, so yes. So that's probably a fallacy there.
I'll remember that when your invoice comes in.
Damn, let the cat out of the bag. People are getting time back. People are getting time back, especially on activities that don't necessarily relate back to a revenue generating activity. So it's freeing up the admin or the office staff on menial repetitive tasks to then potentially have some input into process and procedure or some of those higher value tasks internally. So there is immediate ROI that you can actually measure with this sort of stuff. So again, with the stats from that report I mentioned before, 93% of businesses in Australia can't prove ROI on AI, which I think you can, but I think businesses are trying to bite off too much, and they should really start sort of hyper focusing on those tasks where you can get that time back. So that's one. I think seeing people's minds blown with the tech as well. So I know we sat down before and we were going into some tech stuff, and it might seem a little bit full on, but seeing people, tradies are a great example. I think they've got the brain, how everything fits together and pieces together. From what I'm seeing, they're some of the best adopters of this tech. They're like, great, I don't have to spend that time invoicing, or hey, I can actually spend time on jobs, or a lead will come in and I can instantly quote with Claude or whatever tool they're using. And just to see the adoption piece for me is just really cool, because you're actually talking tech with trade. So we had a guy come in, I had some Windows stuff worked out at home, and he's like, oh, do you know much about AI? And I was sitting there going, maybe a little bit. And, he went on, proceeded to tell me all about how Claude is now set up in his business. I'm not here to sell Claude, but that's what he was using. And to see the changes that it's making for a sole trader. He's got a couple of subbies that do some work for him, and to see the impact that it's making. He's not having to sit down and invoice on a Sunday night. He's not having to do those tasks. I think is just so rewarding. And when in my role I can help others do that, being as passionate about tech as I am, it's pretty cool.
Now he can't pay his wife to do it with the new budget. He probably needs to save that time.
Political.
They get quality time together now, mate.
But I think it's, we talk in business that you've got to have a plan. And, from what we've spoken about, in our meetings and through today, it's around having a plan for your rollout, right? Yep. And that makes it achievable.
I think walking away from any sort of AI engagement, it's about what have I walked away with? Not everything is going to work as smoothly as you'd like it to, but do I have some results? Do I have some outputs? Do I have some artifacts that I can take from this AI venture or whatever we're putting in? And I think a lot of projects don't work really well because it's just all fluffy. It's business owners know they need it, but they don't understand the tech, and you try a few different bits and pieces and you've got nothing to show for it at the end of the day.
I have a love-hate with it, like especially with that other platform that we're not talking about, that I'll be working on a project, it's just about, like it's 95% there. I ask it to change one thing and it's gone a fucking mile off. Like, how do you control that? And I feel like once it's gone that way, I just can't bring it back.
So that's got a lot to do with context windows, and you'll probably find that happens on step 4 or step 5. We've done 1, 2, 3. About step 4 or step 5, things start getting a little bit flakier. So it all comes down to what package you've got. So for me, I've got, the max plans. I've got pretty smart Claude working away. A lot of the free plans or the starter plans, you do get those limitations in context windows, but there's a few things you can do. You can, in your memory files, you can tell whatever AI system you've got to remember certain things or do things a certain way. You've got the ability to set up skills. So if you are doing a repetitive task quite often, you can educate your AI into, again, formatting your spreadsheet and your branding or your colours or whatnot. So you're getting that consistent, repeatable output. But yeah, that's a memory and a context issue that comes into play.
On the flip side, do you just reset it and start again? Because I say to everyone, I think I've got the dumb AI. Is it just it's listened to me too much and can't understand me, or
the lobotomized version?
Yeah. Can it get to a point where it's learnt stuff that you just don't want it to know and you like reboot?
Yeah, it's all on memory. So AI is getting so much better at learning your preferences. Again, like I said, there's memory files. There's things you can set up to make your AI smarter. A lot of the models these days, though, it all depends on the model you're using. Again, from what I use, it's pretty good for my use case. But there's little features that have rolled out in the last couple of weeks. You can type in goal and you can literally tell your AI, do not stop until you have reached these particular points. So if I'm working on a new feature for a website, I can almost one-shot things in terms of don't stop until this website meets these following criteria, and it'll go through and it'll check its own work and spin up little mini agents to then check and verify and talk to itself, oh, hang on, no, we haven't completed the brief yet, rather than you constantly having to kind of go back and type stuff in. So this is just the start of it. And I think that's the most exciting part. So, those little teething issues you've run into, websites didn't do what we wanted them to do 25 years ago. I think we're so far at the start that we'll see improvements for sure. Yep.
When we talk about jobs and there's industries that are going to grow, some will retract. What would you say would be the most susceptible industry and the industry that's going to thrive with the AI tools?
No, that's right. I'll get my crystal ball set up. There's a lot of future.
Just rock in the corner.
We'll do. No, look, I'm a massive optimist, and I think I've seen the benefit that this stuff brings. I think it's a changing in the way people think as well. So, like I said, the time savings and whatnot. So, there are industries or job functions that, might not necessarily exist because AI has been able to automate it. But the stuff that I do now wasn't a job 20 years ago either. Yeah. And so it's, if we talk about the sort of future of work, yes, now's the time to learn it and get ahead of the curve. We already know where this is going, so it's almost like you've been not warned, but we've had heads up. I think that's why training is so important. I'm massive on education and learning. But I think the nature of work, there's jobs that don't exist right now. So people internally, I was having a chat to Denham here in the office, and I think he'll become the architect, the archetype in terms of what a business will need in the future in terms of somebody managing the memory files or the skill files to make sure your business runs and operates effectively through the use of AI. And that's not even a job function that I've seen listed. Out in the world, there's something called a forward deployed engineer, and some of the biggest businesses in the world are hiring really, really good sort of ex-software engineers or people in the AI space to get ahead of the curve. So they're deployed forward, they look at opportunities, and then try and implement that for the wider business and make sure the adoption piece is in place. That job function, I don't think, was even around advertised 3 to 6 months ago. So it's changing as we speak. Things like, if you talk about industry, like the medical sort of industries, or there's a lot of machine learning and AI being applied to imagery, coming back and identifying broken bones or genomes or cells and all that sort of cool stuff. So for every, impact, I think there's a ton of benefit, but it's, I think for a lot of people out there, and what, you read the comment section on social media, and, it's Facebook's changed a lot in the last few years. It's almost insufferable going on there and reading, but, people go, I hate AI and whatnot. They're not the sort of folks that would go off their own bat and try and educate themselves or learn about this, unfortunately. And again, that's just what I sort of look at. Legal, for example, legal tech. I think any industry that has a predefined set of rules, so again, this is the law, there's not really kind of too much else. If there's other changes or case law that comes in, then obviously the tech will adapt. But legal tech, for example, they're talking big job losses in terms of, people who do conveyancing work, for example, or other sort of basic sort of roles in that. But, could they then be deployed to customer-facing roles? Could they be, in your business, okay, cool, we're not spending as much time on admin. Could we talk about upsale opportunities, or hey, we've actually done a review of your, of what you're looking at. Even in my role, hey, I've identified a potential issue or another area of your business that we could improve. So, I don't think it's losses per se. I think it's just if people do decide to spend that time, it's just a changing of job functions.
Evolution.
We're
evolving in the tech space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting one, talking about different sorts of people, and obviously social media has their type of people that want to get on their voice box and get attention. What about leaders or inspiration? Who have you drawn inspiration from?
Look, I'm a pretty avid reader. Big fan online. There's a guy called Andre Karpathy. He's actually just signed for Anthropic, so a lot of his stuff that he's put out there has been great. And when I say I do a lot of reading, it's very much sort of blogs and resources and stuff online these days. In terms of who I look up to, it's an interesting one. I've actually never been caught up with celebrity too much. So I met Mark Waugh once actually, and they say don't meet your heroes. Met him at a function, and it didn't really give me much time. So that was a bit of a childhood dream.
It did my childhood too. When I was Adelaide Oval, I tried to get a signature off him, and he just pushed past when I was about 10. So I've always had the same opinion of him and Tim May.
Well, Slazenger, Tim May. I'll have to unpack this one.
That same thing, but yeah. Yep.
Slazenger cricket bat sales went down from my end on that one. But so look, I guess that's a really good question, because I think I learn by doing, and I try and obviously have a look at sort of what's out there. It is a good question that, because again, I don't try and I'm not on X or Twitter as they call it, because I think the loudest voices get all the attention. LinkedIn's very much the same. I think through this, I'll just map it back to this community role with the Claude Ambassador stuff. Is I think I have more impact at that grassroots level, and seeing people get instant gratification and success and fun and friendship and connection through those roles. And so rather than for me looking at, this person's done whatever and they're the loudest voice in the room, and quite often they're not on the tools working. That's the other thing too, is I think people graduate to a point of, fame or success or whatnot, and they are so far removed from the technology that it's all they're doing is regurgitating speaking points. So I get a lot more value from the people who are actually actively working in the space. And so, I get a lot of that value that a lot of people might look at or listen to or go, oh, hey, this person said X about AI. I get that through my wonderful network of connections and people that, again, very fortunate to sort of have this role that I get to sort of meet. And so I've almost got my own, I guess, mini celebrities within that group as well, who I look up to and look at and listen to. Yeah.
Without sharing data, any feel-good stories of like something you've really gone, wow, I like it, that made me feel good, what I've achieved for them there?
I love seeing underdogs do well. So people who, and again, like I do map it back to this sort of AI conversation, but you've got small businesses being able to take on the big guys now just because they're so much more nimble and able to get things going. Can't really share too much data-wise. There was a business that sort of was taking in the Google ads space. There's a lot of stuff in there. They essentially attached their AI to Google Ads and found a ton of opportunities that these big guys weren't looking at, and essentially started winning back a bunch of market share over a period of time. Got to talk quite broadly about it. But essentially on a shoestring budget, they're actually able to use AI effectively to compete with some of the bigger end of town. And that's a story that gets told quite often. And I think I see that repeated across multiple different places too. So, mum and dad businesses, the tradies that I spoke about before, I mean, it's just, I don't know, the people who lean into it and embrace it and really take it on board and find a use case for it, find that utility, are the ones that are winning. And I think, from my side, I've done a lot of stuff with SMEs over the years, and, to see people getting a fair go through this is pretty cool. Happy for everyone. I mean, To be fair, this is probably the first time I've had to sit down and just reflect on thoughts for the last sort of 8-9 weeks. We've been running events across Australia, off to the Claude conference in a couple of weeks' time, and there's just so much information coming through.
Claude conference. You were just saying before Tokyo.
Yes.
And how many people are you speaking in front of?
I think it's, from all accounts, close to 1,000. So it's in the Asia Pacific region. It's the Anthropic Code with Claude event, which is cool. So in the next couple of weeks, so I'll be up on stage talking about something that I built as a teenager. I won't give too much away just yet, but built something called Manager 11. It's a football management simulator. And all the way back in the late 90s, I had this. Fell in love. That's how my love for Manchester United evolved. They were the top team, and as a kid, you want to always win. So that was the love affair from back then, and always wanted to build my own football manager game. So tinkered around with a lot of tech over the years, and I've always revisited it sort of once every year or two. Oh, can I do this? Can I do that? And just my coding knowledge is as okay as it is, just haven't been able to be at that tech level. In the last 12 months, Claude's come along and actually built me a full working game with proper simulation, and
your dream.
That's exactly right. The teenage dream. Now built with Claude. Yeah.
Well, Rye, it's been fantastic hearing about your dream and living the dream. Certainly not my dream, but I'm very grateful. Very grateful for people like you in the world that can make our worlds easier doing what you're passionate about. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Very good. Cheers.